Number 10. Joshua Stimson. On June 29, 2017, Joshua Stimson murdered his ex-girlfriend Molly McLaren while she was in her car at the Dockside Shopping Center in Chatham. According to reports, the poor woman was stabbed a total of 75 times. When 23-year-old Molly matched with Joshua on Tinder around 8 months prior to the murder, she had absolutely no idea what she was signing up for. The two were in a relationship for 7 months, but Molly decided to break up with him due to his unsettling behavior, and that's when things went horribly wrong. The day after their split, Joshua told Molly that she could have broken up with him in a more respectful manner. He also started posting derogatory comments and pictures about her on Facebook and made false claims that she was using drugs. According to Molly's friends, she was very worried and told them that she was scared of what he might do to her. Molly reported the comments to Facebook, but nothing happened. She then went to the North Kent police station to report her ex's dangerous behavior, and when the cops warned Joshua to stay away from Molly, he didn't really care and ignored them. 2 weeks after their breakup, he creepily showed up to her gym. She immediately contacted her parents and friends, and they told her to leave as soon as possible, and that's exactly what she had tried to do. Molly was in the driver's seat of her car when Joshua walked towards her, yanked her door open, and started stabbing her in the neck and head over and over again. Joshua was soon arrested and pleaded guilty to diminished responsibility manslaughter, but denied murder. The judge sentenced him to a minimum of 26 years in prison and said that it's possible he may never be released. Number 9. Joseph Oberhansley. On September 11, 2014, Joseph Oberhansley was found in a bathtub inside his ex-girlfriend's house holding the dismembered body of his ex, Tammy Blanton. A skillet, a bloody pair of tongs, and a plate containing her skull and bones were also found nearby. Joseph broke into Tammy's house, stabbed her, dismembered her body, and even ate parts of her lungs, heart, and brain. He did this after she broke up with him and changed the locks to her home. He was furious that he had lost control over her and wanted to get back at her for breaking up with him. After being arrested, Joseph initially confessed to his crimes but later proclaimed his innocence. His lawyers argued that he had been coerced into making a confession. This wasn't the first time Joseph had done something like this. He had previously served 12 years in prison in Utah after killing his girlfriend and shooting his mother at the age of 18. He even shot himself, but he survived. After serving his sentence, he moved to Indiana in 2012, where he soon met Tammy, and the two got into a relationship that ended with a violent murder. The first time they tried his case, it ended in a mistrial, after the defense argued that he was mentally unstable. However, he was still convicted of second-degree murder the second time around, and was sentenced to life in prison. Number 8. William Riley Gul. 18-year-old Knoxville, Tennessee resident Riley Gul was Central High School's star football player. His 16-year-old girlfriend, Emma Walker, was a popular cheerleader. The two seemed like picture-perfect sweethearts straight out of a teen drama. However, the reality was much, much darker. They were in a toxic, on-and-off-again relationship for about 2 years, and they often got into intense and heated arguments. Gul was extremely controlling and wanted her all to himself. He didn't want her to hang out with anyone but him. He would also often comment on Emma's clothing, telling her what she should and shouldn't wear. Throughout their toxic relationship, he started sending her aggressive and abusive messages. He once even implied that he was going to kill her. Her parents saw the red flags and banned Gul from their home. They even took away Emma's phone to stop the teens from communicating. However, this didn't work. Gul secretly gave her an iPod Touch, and she would text message him through the Wi-Fi. Like all abusers, Gul would always apologize after his nasty messages and would tell her how much he loves her. Emma's parents asked her to break up with him repeatedly, but she just wouldn't listen. According to them, he had a way of isolating her where he would make her feel like he was the only one there for her. Things seemed to get better after Gul graduated. Emma's parents grounded her and started monitoring everywhere she went. She started to become her old self again and soon broke up with Gul. He didn't take the split well at all. Finally, in November 2016, the story came to a tragic end when Gul shot Emma dead while she was sleeping in her home in Knoxville, Tennessee. Gul posted super emotional and heartfelt tributes to his late girlfriend on his social media accounts in an attempt to protect himself, but it wasn't long before he was arrested and given a life sentence after being convicted of first-degree murder. Number 7. Javier da Silva Rojas. On February 5, 2019, 24-year-old Valerie Rios was found dead in a red suitcase on the side of the road in Greenwich, Connecticut. It was later discovered that she was brutally murdered by her ex-boyfriend, Javier da Silva Rojas. Months after Valerie broke up with Rojas, he showed up to her apartment and the two got into a terrible fight. This horrifically violent episode ended with him tying her up, covering her mouth with tape, and stuffing her into a suitcase. He dumped it near a wooded area in Greenwich and eventually used Valerie's debit card to steal more than $5,000 from her bank account. Medical examiners revealed that Valerie had multiple wounds on her face and there was a large hematoma on her forehead. But she didn't die because of those injuries. She actually died from choking to death inside the suitcase due to a lack of oxygen. According to reports, Valerie had been pretty terrified and was having anxiety attacks for weeks before the incident. She even once told her mother that she was worried someone was going to murder her. Rojas later admitted to murdering his girlfriend and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. And because he's an illegal immigrant, the cold-blooded murderer will be deported back to his home country of Portugal after completing the sentence. Do you think Rojas will face different charges after he's sent back to his home country? Tell us in the comments and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 6. Juan Gastelum. After going missing for around 2 months, 30-year-old Yanira Cedillo's body was found on May 12, 2022 in a remote area in Walla Walla County, Washington. She had 3 children, and just before her gruesome murder, she was celebrating her 30th birthday with her friends. Throughout the night, her ex-boyfriend Juan Gastelum kept calling her and asking her where she was and who she was with. Just before midnight, Yanira got into an argument with her friends and immediately left the party. She later called one of her friends and asked them to pick her up on the 1000 block of Stratford Road, but when her friend got there, Yanira was nowhere to be seen. Worried, the friend called her and could hear a male in the background yelling and asking her who she was talking to. Soon, the phone call was disconnected and Yanira disappeared. After this, Juan drove Yanira to her apartment and murdered her. But this wasn't enough for him. The psychotic Gastelum stayed there for hours after her death and took pictures of himself while he sexually assaulted her dead body. He later moved her body and dumped it in a remote area. According to documents, Gastelum had been physically abusive to Yanira multiple times before he killed her. She even tried to get a restraining order against him in October of 2021. Currently in prison, Gastelum is facing second-degree murder and second-degree sexual assault charges for what he did to Yanira and is expected to be sentenced to life in prison. Number 5. Melanie E. 21-year-old James Barry and 20-year-old Melanie E. met online and developed a relationship over their shared love of video games. The Florida couple spent most of their time together. In fact, they even made sure they went to the same college and often took the same classes just to be together at all times. However, in November 2016, James broke up with her over a gaming chat app, and she did not take it well at all. She was hurt, heartbroken, and furious. In her rage, she drove to her ex-boyfriend's home to confront him in person. There, the two got into a fight and Melanie got even angrier. She grabbed the knife out of a kitchen drawer and repeatedly stabbed poor James. After murdering her ex-boyfriend, she ran away to Silver Spring in Maryland, around 1,000 miles or just over 1,600 kilometers away from the crime scene. James had tried to break up with Melanie several times before this as well. Apparently, she was super possessive and repeatedly insisted that James spent every single second of his day with her. Red flags were always there, and this one time after the breakup, Melanie picked up a knife and threatened to stab herself. In 2019, Melanie E. was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 50 years in prison. Number 4. Griselle Gonzaga. Griselle Gonzaga and Alexa Incandela dated for around 2 years, and the pair even lived together at home in Las Vegas. No one knew that this same house would soon become the site of a brutal and devastating murder. A few months after the two broke up, Griselle showed up at her ex's apartment to, quote, surprise her. She forced her way inside through a sliding glass door, but was shocked to find her ex, Alexa, in bed with a man, who was later identified as Travis Smith. She was enraged to see the person she loved with someone else and attacked her. After Travis pulled Griselle off Alexa, she directed her anger at the unfortunate guy who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. She started punching and choking him while he attempted to defuse the situation by trying to talk to her. According to reports, she initially used tweezers to stab him. She later retrieved a kitchen knife and used that to attack him as well. Travis soon called Metro Dispatch and reported that he had been stabbed in the abdomen. Medical crews arrived and found that he was suffering from a puncture wound as well as head trauma. They immediately transferred him to St. Rose, Siena, where he sadly passed away from his injuries. Alexa also suffered minor lacerations, but thankfully she was treated at the scene and soon recovered. In March 2021, Griselle was found guilty of felony voluntary manslaughter and felony battery use of a deadly weapon. Shockingly, she was only sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison. Number 3. Porsche Humphrey. Intelligent and handsome Lauren High had a bright future ahead of him, but he tragically lost his life at the young age of 29 because of a jealous ex-girlfriend who couldn't let him go. In 2015, Lauren High began dating Porsche Humphrey, and at first everything seemed perfect. The two got along well, and Lauren was head over heels in love with her. They even talked about marriage and kids, but around a year into their relationship, things began to fall apart. They would fight about everyday stuff, such as money, and because Humphrey was super insecure, she often feared that Lauren would leave her for another woman. Reportedly, their relationship came to an end when Humphrey saw her boyfriend like someone else's post on Facebook and threw a huge tantrum. They had an argument about this, and Lauren soon broke up with her. According to his friends, he was done with her and wanted some peace in his life. Then, in February 2017, a little while after the breakup, Humphrey showed up to his place, and after a heated argument, she shot Lauren to death with his own gun. She tried to get rid of the evidence and even gave the cops a phony alibi, but was eventually arrested due to a fingerprint found at the crime scene. In March 2017, Humphrey was arrested and charged with first-degree reckless homicide. In March 2018, she was given a sentence of just 9 years in prison, leading many to question why she wasn't given a more severe punishment despite being convicted of murdering a young man. Number 2, Jodi Aras. Months after they broke up, 32-year-old Jodi Aras stabbed her ex-boyfriend, 30-year-old Travis Alexander, 27 times. She also slit his neck and shot him in his own bathroom. The murder took place in Mesa, Arizona in June 2008. The two dated for nearly 5 months in 2007, but after Travis broke up with Jodi, citing religious reasons, she became obsessed with him and started stalking him. In December, she found out that he was dating someone else and reportedly slashed the tires of his car twice. She also hacked into his Facebook account to try and see who he was talking to. In his last few days, Travis had told his friends that Jodi was a sociopath and the worst thing to ever happen to him. He even told them that he was genuinely scared of her. However, even after their breakup, the two stayed in touch, and according to reports, they had sex on the night of the murder. They then got into a fight which led Jodi to get angry and stab Travis repeatedly. She cut him from ear to ear and finished the job by shooting him. The victim had cuts on his hands, indicating he had desperately tried to defend himself before dying. In 2005, Jodi was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Number 1, Tyler Rios. On July 10, 2021, 24-year-old Jaslene Jones's body was found in Tennessee, hundreds of miles away from her home in Rahway. According to reports, her half-naked body was brutally stuffed into a duffel bag and discarded in the woods. She was murdered by her ex-boyfriend Tyler Rios, with whom she had a 2-year-old son, Sebastian. A few weeks after their breakup, Tyler was at Yasmin's apartment discussing where their son would be living. The argument got heated and Tyler completely lost control of his emotions. He killed the mother of his child with a wrestling move by putting his forearm around her throat until she ultimately stopped breathing. Tyler is a former Highland Park School wrestler and, unfortunately, his victim stood no chance of surviving. He then picked up the dead body, put it in a duffel bag, and placed it in Yasmin's car and drove to Tennessee, where he would later dump the body. And to make things worse, he even took the terrified little child with him. Authorities soon tracked his location and found him hiding in a hotel. The child was physically unharmed, but the psychological scars will likely never go away. According to Yasmin's mother, the little boy repeatedly talks about the traumatic incident and says that he saw, quote, "Daddy choke mommy," end quote. Tyler pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 25 years in state prison for killing his ex-girlfriend and 5 more years for desecrating her remains. Number 10, Bet. Teenagers are known for doing stupid things. It's just a part of growing up, but sometimes they can take things a bit too far. In October 2010, 15-year-old Rebecca Alward was murdered by her ex-boyfriend Joshua Davies when he was just 16 years old. Right after the teens broke up, Davies grew a special kind of hatred for Rebecca. It got so bad that he would regularly discuss killing her with his friends, who thought he was just joking and didn't take him seriously. According to his buddies, Davies would talk about throwing her off a cliff or in a river and poisoning her. At one point, he asked one of his friends what they'd do if he'd actually killed Rebecca. His friend jokingly said he would buy him breakfast. On the day of the murder, Davies told Rebecca to meet him, and she agreed. She was actually very excited to meet him and thought they might end up back together. Davies lured her into the woods near his house in Aberkenfig, South Wales, and he killed her by smashing a huge rock on her head. Joshua was sentenced to 14 years in prison with no parole. As the sentence was announced, Rebecca's mother called out for the death penalty and justice for her daughter. Number 9, Family Affair. Some people do all sorts of crazy things when they're angry, but rarely does it involve murder. Unfortunately, this wasn't true for 39-year-old Kresimira Pechomsky and her children on March 14, 2018. Krasimira Peshnowski and Corey Fenn were the classic on and off couple, but the last time they were off, they didn't know they'd ever be on again. Their relationship was toxic, and Corey lived in Krasimira's basement. At one point, Krasimira's oldest daughter, Victoria, who was 16 at the time, found cocaine in their kitchen. She told her mother about it and pushed her to break up with Fenn. Peshnowski ended up agreeing and went into the basement. Soon after, her daughter left for her father's house but became extremely worried when her mom didn't pick her up the next day. She even texted and called, but she didn't reply. After this, Victoria called her younger sister, Venielia, who was at home having a sleepover with her friend. Venielia went back to check on her mom, but when she reached the basement, Fenn attacked her and stabbed her with a butter knife. He then hid her body under the bed. According to Veniela's friend, Fenn asked her where Victoria was. Thankfully, he let the friend go unharmed and went back downstairs. It wasn't long until Krasimira's boss got worried since she didn't show up for work. She decided to visit her house when she noticed some blood on Fenn's arms and feet. When she left, she notified authorities. The police found Penn in a shed and arrested him. Turns out Fenn beat Peshnowski up until most of her bones were fractured. He strangled and then stabbed his ex to death. Fenn even killed her son, Roy, while he was sleeping peacefully. He claimed he was under the influence of cocaine and that he wasn't in a right state of mind. Despite this lousy excuse, Corey Fenn was found guilty of second-degree murder and now faces a life sentence. Number 8. Boyfriend versus ex-boyfriend. Jealousy can be very dangerous, especially when your boyfriend is possessive. On February 15, 2020, Cot Madeline went up to meet Langanaw, her ex-boyfriend, even though she already had another boyfriend. The visit took place at the always safe hour of 1 a.m. Before meeting, Cot and Langanaw had been texting each other non-stop, and Cot's boyfriend Van Mackelberg was well aware she had been talking to Langanaw and was not happy about it. According to Cot, he followed her when she met up with Van at a Costco. She said she didn't realize that he was there and went back home. She just assumed Langanaw went home too. Little did she know her other boyfriend was holding her ex-boyfriend at gunpoint. Soon after Cot went back, Van showed up out of nowhere and forced Langanaw to drive him to a farm, where he held the 19-year-old at gunpoint. Once they made their way into the farm, Van shot Langanaw right in the head. After the killing, Van went home where he saw Cot packing her stuff and leaving the suite they shared. Van broke down and revealed everything to her. He admitted to shooting Langanaw in the back of the head and also said he didn't mean it. Hard to believe when he pulled the trigger. Van Mackelberg was later arrested and charged with second-degree murder and is currently awaiting sentence. What's the worst jealousy you've ever felt? Let us know in the comments below, and if you liked the video so far, be sure to subscribe to see more insane content. Number 7. Femicide. Costa Rica has one of the highest female homicide rates in the world, with 26 women killed in just 2018 alone. One of the most famous cases was 19-year-old Eva Morera Ulloa, who was shot in the head by her ex-boyfriend. Morera was not only a student, but she was a teen mom that had been an advocate for victims of gender violence, unaware she'd become one herself. She even released her own book about it back in December 2018, where she talked about rising femicide rates and how dangerous their home was becoming. She also wrote how she hoped she or someone else would find a solution for the, quote, wave of femicides. Morera even wrote a message for victims of gender abuse and said she would be their friend and companion to help them get out of whatever problems they were facing. Later, it was revealed that Morera had been killed by 24-year-old Randall Garita. Garita had been physically and mentally abusive towards her all throughout their relationship. Perhaps this is the reason Morera was such a strong advocate. Number 6. Shot 22 times. 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez and 17-year-old Frank DeLeon Jr. had been on and off for quite some time. On January 11, 2022, DeLeon asked Alvarez to meet him at a park near her house. She decided to go and took her dog on a walk too, but Alvarez's family reported how they panicked after hearing gunshots coming from the park. Their dog soon returned home clearly frazzled after the commotion without Alvarez. The family decided to make their way to the park and check what was going on, and when they found their daughter's body, she had been shot 22 times. Her mother performed CPR on her, but it was already too late. Apparently, the young couple broke up after Alvarez found out DeLeon was cheating on her. Her mother said she was always crying about him even though he treated her horribly. DeLeon is currently being held at Harris County Jail with prosecutors seeking a $250,000 bond. But the victim's mother doesn't think he should even have a bond and wants him to be held without one at all. Number 5. Christmas drama. Right before Christmas 2021, 28-year-old Keishla Arroyo Rodriguez broke up with 32-year-old Elvin Almodovar Rodriguez. He was already pretty upset after being dumped, but when he saw Arroyo with another man, he was fuming. So on January 10th, 2022, Almodovar made his way to his ex-girlfriend's apartment, broke into her room, and killed her. As if things couldn't get any worse, her 3 children were in the room right next to her. Her 7-year-old daughter told the police everything that happened with the help of an interpreter. She said Almodovar suddenly came into the house and confronted their mother in the bathroom. She said she heard loud, quote, bangs from the room while she sat next to her 5-year-old and 3-year-old siblings. After he killed Arroyo, he locked the door behind him and fled the scene by stealing his victim's car. The child saw her mother lying dead on the bathroom floor, so she decided to call her dad. According to the father of the children, Almodovar had called him a few days prior and asked him in a, quote, jealous manner if he had seen Arroyo with another man. He also revealed Arroyo told him that Almodovar had hit her in the face, which is why she broke up with him in the first place. Number 4, 28 miles. 30-year-old Daniel Booten walked over 28 miles, or about 45 kilometers, just to murder his 26-year-old ex-girlfriend, Bethany Vincent, and her 9-year-old autistic son, Darren Henson. The incident took place around 8 p.m. on May 31st, 2021 at Lincolnshire. The two met on Tinder, but had been together for quite a while before the relationship deteriorated by March 2019. But Bolton wasn't over her and sent her over 900 text messages until he was given a restraining order. Bolton told a Salvation Army support worker that it was his mission to completely wipe out the Vincent family bloodline. Apparently, he also hated Darren for some unknown reasons. Vincent and her son, along with her baby, were actually going to move to another house before they were murdered. This place would have been an address completely unknown to Bolton. But before that happened, Bolton broke in and stabbed Vincent and her son. A 9-month-old baby was apparently crawling around the house when the emergency service crew arrived. Bolton left a note before he left which said, quote, Daniel Bolton takes full responsibility for 182, end quote. The police ended up putting on a 24-hour-long charge until Bolton stabbed an off-duty cop. Later, he was tased and arrested on a farm nearby. When he tried to claim he was on, quote, autopilot during the murders, the jury didn't buy it. Daniel was charged with manslaughter, assault, resisting arrest, and burglary. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum sentence of 40 years. Number 3, Fatal Bullet. On Halloween 2021, 27-year-old Nikita Booker shot her ex-boyfriend's 22-year-old daughter in the face. The incident was recorded by a dash cam on a bystander's car as they drove by the murder scene. Booker shot Kalia Bledsoe twice in the face and also shot at her ex-boyfriend as well as Bledsoe's boyfriend. Thankfully, they weren't hit and got away. Booker believed Bledsoe and her father had broken into her house just a few days before the incident. The two happened to live in the same apartment complex. Bledsoe's father was arrested for burglary, but all charges ended up getting dropped. On the day of the murder, Booker was with her brother and they had been drinking. They then drove to Bledsoe's apartment where the two of them got into a heated argument. The two walked into an alley where she shot Bledsoe dead and ran away with her brother. The bystander who accidentally recorded the incident with their dash cam later dropped by the police station and anonymously left the footage with them. Booker was later found at her mother's place and quickly arrested. Booker has 3 very young children and works as a rideshare driver. Despite this, Judge Barbara Dawkins refused to give her bail. She was charged with the murder of Kalia Bledsoe along with the attempted murder of Bledsoe's boyfriend and father. She currently awaits trial for sentencing. Number 2, Facebook Live. 44-year-old Rajay Sharif Black admitted to killing his ex-girlfriend and ex-wife on Facebook Live before killing himself. This happened on December 12, 2021, when he talked about killing his ex-girlfriend and said, quote, I just shot my ex-girlfriend in the head, yo. It felt like a dream, end quote. He also said his ex-wife was next too. Black said he had been having a lot of child custody issues with both of the women and that he couldn't go to prison. He kept saying his ex-wife was the reason his depression started and that people shouldn't, quote, play with others' emotions. Right after admitting this, Black's 42-year-old ex-wife showed up at the doorway and he said, oh, here's my ex-wife right now. At this point, the live stream cut off, but police say Black shot his ex-wife to death just moments after and then killed himself. The police also found the couple's children in his BMW unharmed. A few of their neighbors said they heard about 6 gunshots during the murder, which is why cops found 2 dead bodies inside Black's ex-wife apartment. Number 1. Dismembered. A man from Pennsylvania was arrested after he killed his ex-girlfriend and dismembered her body in their apartment building. Police went to investigate the apartment complex in Clifton Heights after responding to a domestic abuse call on February 11, 2012. When the police went inside the apartment, they found 32-year-old Nicholas Scuria in the middle of decapitating his ex-girlfriend with a machete. After the police arrested him, they found several weapons. Apparently, a neighbor heard screaming next door and quickly called the police. They said the screaming had suddenly stopped and they could only hear sawing sounds afterwards. Scuria told police that he and his ex had an argument and she threatened to castrate him. He also said he knocked her unconscious after he struck her head. He claims that he tried to get rid of the evidence by dismembering her body, which didn't end up working the way he wanted. He said all of this as if somehow it justified his gruesome crime. Scuria has been charged with abuse of a corpse, weapons offenses, and first and third degree murder.
Number 10. Abigail White. There are some people in this world that are born completely without shame. One of them is an English woman named Abigail White. In March 2022, she brutally murdered 22-year-old Bradley Lewis when he tried breaking up with her. Abigail has long blonde hair, lip filler, and a large chest, which has led many to describe her as a knockoff Barbie of sorts. She made a decent living as an OnlyFans model, uploading explicit photographs and content to the site in exchange for money. Before Bradley's death, he and Abigail were seen together at a bar in a heated argument. Apparently, the woman threw her drink in her boyfriend's face and even told him he was dead. Once back at their shared home in Kingswood, the couple continued their fight over whether or not they should separate. At some point, Abigail grabbed a kitchen knife that measured 6.7 inches long and plunged it into her lover's back. Once confronted by police, she told them that she never meant to kill Bradley. She instead said that she only wanted to scare him. All of this came after she originally told law enforcement that the victim had hurt himself with the knife. 1 year after the murder, Abigail made headlines again after requesting conjugal visits to prison. The killer said that she was speaking on behalf of all the prisoners, while asking for men and women to be able to have overnight stays together. After killing her boyfriend and being found guilty, Abigail had the audacity to make such a request. It seems like she doesn't understand the concept of her 18-year minimum prison sentence and punishment. And did we mention she had 3 kids with Bradley as well, meaning she not only killed her boyfriend, but the father of her children. Number 9. Bellamy. Breakups are difficult for anyone involved, whether you're the person ending the relationship or the one getting your heart broken. There are mature ways to handle it, but there's also the way that 44-year-old Ann Bellamy handled it. On New Year's Day in 2017, the Milwaukee resident stormed into her ex-boyfriend's home. 42-year-old Elandis Johnson was spending the holiday with his new girlfriend, and Ann wasn't happy about it. She and Elandis had a long relationship and raised 4 children together. For the man to throw all of that history away and move on so quickly was despicable in Ann's mind. So she decided to take justice into her own hands. After breaking into his home, Ann shot Elandis. The bullet hit him straight in the eye, killing him instantly. About an hour or so after the attack, the victim's new girlfriend discovered his dead body and called 911. It didn't take long for police to arrest Ann and charge her for the murder. She was found guilty in 2019 and was given 20 years in prison. With no previous charges on her criminal record, Ann was given a less severe sentence. On top of the 20 years, she was also ordered to pay the victim's family about $20,000. Number 8. James Dter. As the saying goes, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But unfortunately for one woman, her Sin City sin wasn't left behind. Instead, 41-year-old Maylene Doppert was arrested after her breakup with 42-year-old James Dter went wrong. She didn't take the news well when James tried to end their relationship. Actually, Maylene got in her car and stepped on the gas pedal. She ran straight over James, who was helpless, unable to get out of the way. When paramedics got to the scene, he told them what his girlfriend had done. The medical professionals treated severe lacerations on the man's head, arms, and hip. Before their breakup disaster, Maylene and James had only been together for a few months. They made a quick decision to move into an apartment together despite this. Around 9 p.m. one night in November 2020, Melanie caught her boyfriend moving his stuff into his vehicle. She then confronted him, which led to a fight over their breakup. Melanie also accused James of stealing some of her stuff, but he insisted he didn't. When she ran over him with her Mitsubishi, James flew up into the air before harshly landing on top of another car nearby. At first, he couldn't move a muscle and felt like he couldn't breathe. Not long after, he passed out due to severe blunt force injuries. Melanie has since been found guilty of murder and faces decades behind bars for what she did. Number 7. Amber Bradshaw. Some people can't handle the thought of their lover being with anyone else, so instead of simply breaking up when things aren't working out, they resort to brutal violence. And that's exactly what happened in Taylor, Michigan, with 21-year-old Nate Jackson. In February 2023, officers were called to Nate's home, which he shared with his 23-year-old girlfriend, Amber Bradshaw. Once inside, they discovered a horrific scene and 2 dead bodies. Amber had apparently told Nate that she wanted to break up that night, and he wasn't happy. Before speaking with him, the young woman asked others at the property to leave so they could talk in private. This was a mistake that costed her life. Soon after being left alone together, gunshots were heard from inside. First responders discovered that Amber and Nate were dead. After shooting his girlfriend, Nate took his own life. He apparently believed that there was no reason for him to be alive after hurting his lover. The man had no criminal record, so his actions seemed very out of character. Luckily, Amber's son wasn't at home during the incident and was left unharmed. Number 6. Jaslene Jones. Everyone remembers their first love. Whether they look back on those moments with fondness or hatred depends on the person though. Having such an intense connection at a young age can be dangerous. For 14-year-old Ilya Olsen, his love for Jaslene Jones was intense. So, when the girlfriend tried to break up with him, the whole world turned upside down. The young couple were walking down some railroad tracks to smoke one day in January 2023, when 14-year-old Jaslene told Ilya that she no longer wanted to be with him. As soon as she broke the news, Ilya freaked out, ordering her to turn off her phone and hand it to him. When she did, the angry teenager threw it to the side of the tracks as he held up a gun to Jaslene's head and pulled the trigger. It's believed the victim survived the first shot and begged her boyfriend to spare her life. Instead, Ilya fired more bullets at her. Luckily, she had enough strength to run away and get the attention of a driver on a nearby road. Jaslene was quickly taken to the hospital where she informed authorities of who'd hurt her. She had to undergo multiple surgeries since one bullet went through her cheekbone before stopping near her artery. It's expected that the teen will survive though. Meanwhile, Ilya posted about the shooting on his Snapchat, prompting police officers to drive to his house and arrest him. They found the weapon, bullets, and bloody clothing in his room. This case is ongoing, so we'll have to wait and see what becomes of Ilya in the coming months. How do you think Ilya should be punished for attempted murder? Let us know your opinion in the comments down below, and if you like the video so far, subscribe to join the Badger fam. Number 5. Lynn and You. It can be difficult to end a relationship at times. That's why more and more people have started ghosting their significant others or romantic partners instead of doing the dirty work of breaking their hearts in person. If you aren't familiar, this refers to cutting all contact with someone without any explanation. In 2019, one Chinese woman took ghosting to a whole new level when she faked being kidnapped and murdered in order to break up with her lover. The 37-year-old Wuhan woman, who's only been referred to as Yu, was arrested for fraud after making it seem like her ex-husband had abducted and killed her. She did this because she believed her boyfriend Lynn wasn't good enough in terms of finances. At the start of their relationship, Yu had no idea that Lynn wasn't well off. It wasn't until she went to his house for the first time to celebrate the Chinese New Year that she realized he was poor. After thinking it over for some time, Yu decided that she had to cut things off with Lynn. She sent him a text message saying that her ex had kidnapped her and she needed to be saved. Rightfully scared for his lover, Lynn contacted the police and they realized that it was all a lie. You was arrested under charges of disrupting social order. It's unclear if she received prison time, but she did have to stay in the custody of law enforcement for 10 days. Number 4. Lazarus Cillo. In January 2023, a teenager from San Antonio, Texas, killed both his ex-girlfriend and a close friend of hers after she ended their relationship. The 18-year-old suspect, Lazarus Cillo, murdered 25-year-old Alyssa Nicole Perez and 32-year-old Edward Acosta Jimenez as they were sitting inside a car. Luckily, the incident was captured by nearby surveillance cameras. In the recovered videos, a man resembling Lazarus was caught walking away from the crime scene. According to the victim's family, the young couple had recently broke up about a week before the shooting. It was reported that the suspect fired a few bullets at Alyssa during this time, but she was remarkably left uninjured. A few hours after the bodies were discovered, an attempted carjacking was reported near the crime scene. A man dialed 911 after he was held up at gunpoint. It's believed that the person responsible for this was Lazarus. He only walked away from the man when a witness came into view. Officers later arrested Lazarus and found him carrying Alyssa's cell phone. He was also in possession of her debit and social security cards. While the case is ongoing, the suspect has been charged with capital murder and will likely be found guilty considering the overwhelming amount of evidence piled against him. Number 3. Tanner Flores. If you learn anything from today's video, it should be to take caution when approaching a breakup. You never know how someone is going to react, so you should break the news to them in a public place for your own safety. Sadly, a teenager from Colorado took the life of his ex-girlfriend after not being able to cope with their breakup. The 18-year-olds, Ashley Doolittle and Tanner Flores, had been dating for over a year before ending things, which is a long time when you're that young. Afterward, Tanner's friends claim he was acting strange. In 2016, the boy lured Ashley to Carter Lake. He likely told her that he wanted to talk things out and get closure, but his true intentions were far more sinister. Once they were alone together, Tanner shot Ashley in the head and cleaned up her dead body. Then he shoved her in the back of his car before heading on a 5-hour drive through the mountains. The victim's parents got worried when they couldn't reach her, so they called 911. Tanner's dad also reported him missing and told detectives that one of his guns from his locked cabinet was gone. This instantly raised alarms, prompting a major search effort for the two teens. Once Tanner was found, he quickly admitted to the murder. His plans of going to Colorado State University fell through as he realized his future would be spent behind prison bars. The young man was charged with kidnapping and first-degree murder. The judge and jury found him guilty in 2017, and he was handed a life sentence for the death of Ashley Doolittle. Number 2. Melanie E. Most killers try to run away from their mistakes, or at the very least, they act like they weren't responsible. The same was true for 20-year-old Melanie E, who killed her ex-boyfriend in 2016. Those who knew the couple claimed that Melanie and 21-year-old James Barry had an extremely difficult breakup. The man broke up with her in a video game chat, saying that for the last few months he hadn't loved her. In fact, it was so bad that Melanie then decided to break into her ex's house in Florida. Once inside, she grabbed a knife and stabbed the man to death. After realizing what she'd done, the young woman hopped in her car and started driving. The victim's mother and close friend were at the home that night and walked in to see James bleeding out. They did everything they could to save him, but it was already too late. Melanie had stabbed him in the chest 7 times. She fled about 1,000 miles north until she was stopped by police officers in Silver Spring, Maryland. There was a warrant put out for her arrest after James's body was discovered. Melanie was found guilty and was handed a 50-year prison sentence for the murder. While we can understand her anger after being broken up within a video game, there's no justifying her violent actions. Number 1. Aaron Clark. When a relationship comes to an end, the families of those involved often have to provide support and comfort. Sadly, for one Philadelphia family whose daughter Amira Rogers had recently broken up with 30-year-old Aaron Clark, their involvement was fatal. On December 4th, 2022, after his girlfriend ended things for good, Aaron decided to get revenge. So he broke into the woman's house and lit a fire. At the time, his ex wasn't at the property, but her little sister, Olivia Drasher, was. The 20-year-old sister suffered from cerebral palsy, which forced her to use a wheelchair. When the flames erupted, she was helpless and unable to escape. Aaron apparently sent several texts to Amira before lighting the fire. He claimed that he was going to post her nude pictures online and even said, "Pick up before I do something crazy. Hope you don't miss the show." Security footage of him walking away from Amira's burning house was later discovered. When officers tried to arrest him, he spat at them and resisted. When he was finally placed in police custody, he was charged with murder and several offenses related to the fire. This case remains ongoing though, so the outcome isn't clear yet. What's your worst breakup story? Let us know in the comments and subscribe if you liked what you saw. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger. Bye for now.